The night is long in this part of the country. The highways are dark, and the rain can feel like it's trying to wash the lines right off the road. It's in these little roadside places, these islands of neon light, that you find the heart of it all. You find the tired, the hopeful, and the hungry. But sometimes, in that same rain, the darkness washes in too. It comes in loud, and it comes in mean, tracking mud on a clean floor. It believes that because it's loud, it's strong. It believes that because good people are quiet, they are weak. This is that story. It's a story about what happens when that kind of evil kicks in the door, thinking it owns the place. It's a story about a quiet widow, two men full of whiskey and violence, and the sheriff who was sitting in the back booth, just trying to finish his coffee. Tell me where you're watching from. This world is wide, but good hearts always find each other, usually when the storm is at its worst. This isn't just about a fight in a diner. It's about the courage it takes to be the only one standing. It's about the quiet, unshakable honor that holds the line. It's about the moment justice stops being a word and becomes a choice. Stay right here till the end. Some stories deserve to be seen through, especially the ones where good people stand up, because the truth always has a way of arriving, even if it takes its time, and it always arrives when it's needed most. It's the kind of rain that washes the dust off the soul, drumming hard on the tin roof of the Lone Star Gulp, just a wide spot on a dark Texas highway, a place where coffee's always hot and the radio plays low. You know the kind of place. It's a sanctuary from the long road, where tired folks refuel, maybe share a quiet word, seeking comfort in the familiar neon buzz. It's a small slice of decency, a place where family comes for pie after church. This is where the storm outside is supposed to stay. Inside, there's a warmth. You can smell the grease and the sugar, the scent of honest work. The waitress, just a kid, probably saving for college, refills cups with a tired smile. It's a place of unspoken rules, of quiet respect. You leave the world at the door. You respect the roof over your head. This is the honor of the common man, the decency that holds small towns together. But decency is a fragile thing. It's glass, and sometimes darkness just kicks the door in, tracking mud all over the clean floor. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't care about the rules of honor or the safety of the folks inside. Tonight, that darkness wore the shape of two men, big and loud, smelling of stale whiskey and road rage. They didn't enter the diner. They invaded it, bringing the cold rain and the violence with them. The shouting started like a crack of lightning, sudden and sharp, splitting the peace. This wasn't a disagreement. This was violation. If stories of courage, faith, and justice touch your heart, if you believe that good people must stand firm, join us. Subscribe and walk this road with us. We need good folks to stick together. These men didn't care who heard. They were broken, and they wanted everyone else to feel their jagged edges. They wanted fear. They fed on it. You've seen their kind. Men who mistake cruelty for strength, who believe the world owes them something. They forget that every person they see is part of a family, someone's mother, someone's child. They shoved the young waitress, spilling coffee and oaths. They were looking for a target, for anyone weaker than themselves. And in their clouded eyes, they found one. An elderly woman, Miss Sarah. You've seen her 1,000 times. White hair, hands marked by time and work, eyes that have seen droughts and harvests. She was the conscience of this place, the quiet strength that reminds you of your own grandmother. She represents the bedrock of a community, the living history that deserves our highest honor. She was sitting alone, quiet, nursing a cup of tea. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She just said, "That's enough, boys. Leave the girl alone." It wasn't a request. It was a statement of fact, spoken with the simple authority of someone who knows right from wrong. She wasn't appealing to their better nature. She was the better nature. Her courage was simple, pure, and absolute. She was defending the young. The sound that came next, it wasn't the thunder. It was the crack of a chair hitting the tile, and the sickening sound of an old woman hitting the floor. One of the men, the bigger one, had shoved her hard. He laughed, a raw, ugly sound that didn't belong in this world. He'd put his hands on a grandmother. He'd crossed a line that civilization itself is built on. The diner fell into a terrible silence. You could hear the rain again, but it sounded different. It sounded angry. The coffee pot stopped dripping. The young waitress froze, her face pale with terror. All eyes went to the floor, to the small, frail woman lying amongst the overturned chairs. This was the moment. The moment the veneer of safety was torn away, revealing the raw, cold reality beneath. This is when you find out who people really are. When justice seems 1,000 miles away and evil is right there, breathing in your face. Fear is a cold chain, and in that moment, it locked around every heart in that diner. Everyone, maybe, except one. Because evil always makes one fatal mistake. It always assumes it's the only predator in the room. The men turned, basking in the terror they'd created. They felt like kings. They mistook silence for surrender. They didn't know that every action has a consequence, that Providence sometimes puts a shepherd in the flock, dressed like just another sheep. They didn't know that what they just did wasn't just an assault. It was a summons. They never saw the man in the back booth. He hadn't moved. He just watched, his coffee untouched. He watched the rain. He watched the fear. And he watched the line of honor get crossed. And now, he watched them. They had no idea who was sipping coffee in the shadows, waiting. In the farthest booth, where the shadows cling to the worn vinyl, sits a man. He looks like any other traveler washed in by the storm. Faded denim jacket, worn boots, hands that look like they've fixed more fences than they've ever hurt anyone. He's quiet. He's not looking at his phone. He's just watching the rain distort the headlights on the highway. This is Sheriff Jake Runnels, but tonight, he's just Jake. The badge is heavy in his pocket, a cold piece of metal that feels more like a burden of honor than a symbol of power. He sips his coffee. It's bitter, burnt, but it's hot, and that's all that matters. He's off the clock, technically, just trying to get a moment's peace before the long drive home to his own family. A man like Jake, he doesn't really get an off-duty. His kind of work isn't a job. It's a wiring. It's a promise he made to himself a long time ago. He sees the world in shades of right and wrong, and that line is as clear to him as a barbed wire fence against a sunrise. His eyes, when he lifts them, are steady. They don't dart around. They just absorb. He'd seen the two men come in. He'd smelled the trouble on them, the sour scent of whiskey and poor decisions. But he also knows you don't stop a fight before it's even a thought. You watch. You wait. You trust that men will, for the most part, honor the space they're in. He believes in the goodness of people, but he's not naive about the darkness that can ride them. He knows this diner. He knows the kid waitress, watched her grow up. He knows Miss Sarah, knows her husband was a good man, a veteran who taught Jake how to mend a saddle right. Seeing her is like seeing his own kin, a reminder of the bedrock of their community. She embodies the quiet courage that built this town. And seeing her shoved to the ground, well, that changes the temperature of the room for a man like Jake. It makes the coffee taste even more bitter. Outside, in the patrol truck, Shadow waits. He's not just a dog. He's a partner. A black shepherd mixed with eyes that see right through pretense. He's more than trained. He's loyal. He's the other half of Jake's senses. Shadow is the silent promise of justice that waits in the dark. He isn't restless. He isn't barking at the thunder. He's just listening. He's listening for one sound, and one sound only, the sound of his partner needing him. Jake's hand rests on the table. It doesn't twitch. He doesn't reach for his radio. Not yet. He just observes. He sees the fear settle on the other customers. He sees the young waitress crying silently behind the counter. He sees the two men, puffed up, turning their violence into a performance. They think they own this space now. They think their noise makes them strong. Jake knows better. Real strength, real honor, is quiet. It doesn't need to shout. The diner feels smaller, the air sucked out of it. The men are loud, demanding service, laughing at the old woman still trying to catch her breath on the floor. They are reveling in the power of intimidation. They've broken the unspoken covenant of a safe harbor. They've brought the lawlessness of the highway into a place meant for rest. They've insulted the very idea of family and decency. Jake takes another sip of coffee. Slow, deliberate. He's not angry. Anger is a wildfire, hot and careless. What he feels is colder, cleaner. It's the feeling of a tool being picked up, a job needing to be done. He's calculating. He's counting. 2 men, both big, both drunk. One is wired, unpredictable. The other is a follower, trying to impress his friend. He notes the exits. He notes the weapons they've made of their own fists. His gaze is steady. He's not a hero from a movie. He's just a man who understands the weight of his oath. He knows that courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about the presence of justice. It's about knowing that if he does nothing, that line of honor stays broken. And in his county, on his watch, lines don't stay broken for long. He's the quiet shepherd, and the wolves are in the fold. He hasn't moved. He hasn't spoken. To the 2 men, he's just another shadow in the corner, part of the scenery. They haven't even given him a second glance. They're too busy being loud, too busy soaking in the fear they've caused. They don't realize that the quietest man in the room is always the one you should be watching. They don't know who he is. They don't know he's the man who stands between the storm and the flock. He's the guardian. He is the quiet authority that doesn't need a uniform to be real. He's just waiting for the right moment to remind them what honor looks like. He's giving them just enough rope, letting them make their choice clear to God and everyone present. Because justice isn't always loud like thunder. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's patient. Sometimes it just sits in the back booth, drinking bad coffee, waiting for the precise moment to stand up. And that moment was getting closer with every breath the men took. It always starts this way. The door swings open too hard, slamming against the wall, making the little bell on top jangle like an alarm. It's a violation of the quiet. The 2 men who stumbled in weren't just seeking shelter from the rain. They were bringing their own storm. They were loud, their voices grating against the hum of the diner. You could feel the air change, the way the prairie air chills just before a hailstorm. They reeked of cheap whiskey and a deeper kind of sourness, the smell of men who'd lost respect for themselves. They swaggered, not walked. They thought their size gave them the right of way. They bumped into a table, knocking over a salt shaker, and didn't apologize. They just laughed. They looked at the other patrons with a mixture of contempt and challenge, daring anyone to meet their gaze. This wasn't just bad manners. It was a deliberate show of force. They were wolves testing a fence, looking for the weakest point. They were challenging the unspoken honor of the room. The young waitress, Jenny, approached them. You could see the tremor in her hand as she held the coffee pot. She's part of the local family, known by everyone. She asked them to keep their voices down. It was a simple, polite request. But to men like this, politeness is weakness. The taller one grabbed her wrist, hard. "We'll be as loud as we damn well please, sweetheart." His voice was a threat, a stain on the air. He was enjoying her fear. That's when Miss Sarah moved. She didn't stand up right away. She just spoke from her booth, her voice not loud, but clear. It cut right through their drunken noise. "You let her go. Now." There was no tremble in her words. It was the voice of a mother, a grandmother, the matriarch of the town. She was showing a courage that shamed every other silent person in that room. She was defending her own. For a second, the trucker looked confused. He let go of the waitress, surprised by the authority in that old woman's voice. But his pride, soaked in alcohol, couldn't stand being corrected by her. He turned, his face twisting into an ugly mask. "What did you say to me, old woman?" He moved toward her booth, using his body to intimidate, to loom over her. He was violating a sacred trust, the respect owed to the elders who built the very roads he drove on. Miss Sarah didn't flinch. She looked him right in the eye. "I said, that's enough. This is a decent place. We don't treat our family like that." She wasn't just talking about the waitress. She was talking about everyone. She was the heart of this place, and her courage was rooted in a lifetime of knowing what was right. She was the honor they had forgotten. She was the line. And then he crossed it. With an open palm, he shoved her. Not a tap, but a violent, hateful push. He shoved her against the wall of the booth. The sound of her head hitting the hard vinyl echoed. Then she slumped, falling sideways onto the seat, her glasses knocked askew. It was the kind of cowardly act that sucks the air from your lungs. He had put his hands on an elder. He had broken the covenant. The diner froze. This was no longer just drunken noise. This was an assault. The young waitress gasped, her hand over her mouth. A man in another booth started to stand up, but the second trucker put a hand on his shoulder and pushed him back down. "Stay out of it. It's none of your business." Fear, cold and heavy, settled over the room. This was the moment justice seemed to have left the building. In the back, Jake Runnels watched. His face was granite. He didn't move, but his eyes were locked on the man who had shoved Miss Sarah. He saw the act. He saw the violation. He saw the fear the man was planting and the deep disrespect for family, honor, and basic human decency. He saw a man who needed to be taught a lesson, not in anger, but in consequence. The trucker who shoved her laughed. He felt powerful. He had silenced the entire room. He had silenced the voice of courage. He turned his back on her, triumphant, and stalked toward the counter, demanding food and more drink. He believed he had won. He believed he was in control. He had no idea what he had just done. He didn't just shove an old woman. He didn't just scare a waitress. He had awakened the shepherd. He had called down a reckoning that was now as inevitable as the sunrise. By striking Miss Sarah, he had struck at the very heart of the town, at the honor Jake had sworn his life to protect. The silence in the diner was no longer just fear. It was something else. It was the deep, cold breath before the avalanche. The rain hammered the roof, and the man who thought he was a wolf had just sealed his own fate, blind to the guardian watching from the shadows. Then, in the back booth, a shadow detaches itself from the vinyl. Jake Runnels stands up. It's not a sudden movement. It's a slow unfolding, like a man getting up from a long day's work. It's quiet, deliberate, and carries a weight that the two drunks are too blind to see. He doesn't puff out his chest. He doesn't call their names. He just stands. And in that simple act, the whole geometry of the room shifts. He's a stone dropped into a still, dark pond, and the ripples haven't even started yet. The two men, high on their own cruelty, don't even notice him. They are too busy playing kings, demanding the young waitress bring them food, or else. They turn their ugly attention to the other customers, a young family huddled in a booth near the front. "What are you looking at?" one of them snarls. He's feeding off the fear, and it's making him brave. He doesn't know that his kind of brave is just cowardice with a loud voice. Jake just watches. His stillness is a counter-pressure to their noise. The tension in the diner thickens. You could feel it, like the air before a lightning strike. It's the silence of the prey, but it's also the silence of the hunter. The other patrons feel it. They see a man standing, but they don't see a sheriff. They just see someone who hasn't bowed down. It's a small, flickering ember of courage in a room full of shadow. The trucker who shoved Miss Sarah points at the young father in the other booth. "Gimme your wallet," he demands, "and your phone. Nobody's calling anyone." He's crossed from assault to robbery. He's taking not just their money, but their safety, their connection to help. If this stirs something in you like it does in me, comment justice down below. Sometimes you have to name what you're fighting for, even if it's just in your own heart, to keep the fire lit. This is the test. The moment where honor is either a word you say or a thing you do. Jake knows this. He's not a man for speeches. He believes justice is a quiet thing, a practical thing. It's mending the fence. It's pulling the calf from the mud. And sometimes it's standing between the wolf and the flock. He's not thinking about the law in a book. He's thinking about the law that's written on the human heart. He takes a step, just one, away from his booth, into the narrow aisle. He's still not looking at them. He's looking at Miss Sarah, who is slowly trying to sit up, her hand to her head. He sees her pain, and it settles his soul into that cold, calm place where decisions are made. His courage isn't for show. It's a tool. It's a shield. He's making himself the new target, drawing the eye without saying a word. The men are drunk on power, laughing as the young father fumbles for his wallet, trying to protect his wife and child. They are breaking the sacred circle of family. They are tearing at the fabric that holds a decent world together. They think they're in charge. They think the fear they've created makes them strong. But fear is a hollow vessel. It can't stand up to true authority. And Jake is all authority. It's in his spine. It's in the way he plants his feet. He doesn't need a badge or a siren. He is the line. He's the quiet man who's seen too much to be intimidated by two loud-mouthed fools who've had too much to drink. He knows their kind. They are bullies. And bullies are, at their core, just terrified children in big bodies. He starts to move toward the counter, slowly, like he's just going to pay his bill. This simple, normal act is, in this moment, an act of profound defiance. He's walking through their sphere of fear. He's showing them, and everyone else, that their power is an illusion. He's not challenging them. He's dismissing them. And that, more than anything, is about to set them off. The air is so thick you could cut it. Every breath is loud. The only sounds are the rain, the whir of the old cooler, and the breathing of frightened people. They are watching a single, quiet man walk calmly toward the fire. They are holding their breath, waiting for the explosion. They are praying for a miracle, not realizing the miracle is already in motion. One of the truckers finally sees him. He sees this man who isn't cowering, who isn't obeying. "Hey, old man, I'm talking to you," he shouts, his voice cracking with false bravado. He doesn't like this. This quiet man is ruining his fun. This quiet man is disrespecting his power. He points a finger at Jake. "Nobody moves unless I say so." Jake stops. He turns very slowly. He doesn't raise his hands. He just looks at them, really looks at them. And for the first time, the two men feel a different kind of cold. It's not the rain. It's the gaze of a man who is not afraid of them in the slightest. And that's a terror they don't know how to handle. The bigger trucker, the one with the dead eyes, grins at Jake. He likes this. He likes the quiet man who isn't scared. It's a new game. He turns, walks to the front door, and with a heavy metallic chunk, he throws the deadbolt. That sound. That's the sound of a trap springing shut. It's the sound of hope leaving the room. The rain outside seems to get louder, a world away, a freedom they no longer have. The trucker jangles the key, a mocking smile on his face. Nobody's leaving till we say so. Now the air isn't just tense. It's cold. It's the cold of a cellar, the cold of true, suffocating fear. This isn't a diner anymore, it's a box. Every person in there feels the walls close in. The young waitress stops crying and just holds her breath. The man who tried to stand up earlier, he just stares at his hands. This is the moment when the wolf shows you the teeth you knew were there all along. It's the moment you realize your safety was just an illusion. In the booth, Miss Sarah is struggling. She's hurt. You can see a trickle of blood at her temple where her glasses cut her. She's a tough woman, the very definition of courage. But pain is pain. She represents the honor and history of this town, and she's been struck down and is now a prisoner. Seeing her like that, it breaks something in the room. It breaks the shared belief that things will somehow be okay. Then a flicker of desperate courage. The young father, the one with the wife and kid. He'd been shielding his family with his own body. He thinks the truckers are distracted by Jake. His hand slides into his pocket, slow, trying to pull out his cell phone. He's not trying to be a hero. He's just a father. He's trying to call for help. He's doing what any man of honor would do, try to protect his own. But the second trucker, the follower, he sees everything. He's a hyena, watching the edges. He lunges, his arms swinging wide. He doesn't just grab the phone. He slaps it, a vicious cracking sound, sending the phone flying out of the man's hand. It skitters across the tile floor and shatters against the leg of the counter. The screen goes black. The last lifeline is gone. The sound of that plastic shattering is the sound of hope breaking. A whimper comes from the young father's booth. His little girl, who'd been silent, finally breaks. It's a thin, terrified wail. The father pulls her close, his face a mask of helpless rage and fear. He'd tried. He'd shown courage, and this was his reward. His family is now in more danger, and his failure is lying in pieces on the floor. The trucker who slapped the phone just laughs and spits. Now the power is absolute. The truckers own this room. They own the air. They own the silence. They've proven that courage gets you punished. They've proven that resistance is futile. They are the law now, and their law is chaos and cruelty. They have taken over this small, decent place and turned it into their own personal playground of fear. They are kings of a broken kingdom. This is the hard part of the road. This is the part where you're tested. When you're staring evil in the face and you are well and truly trapped. This is where faith gets real quiet. Where is justice now? Is it just a word in a book? Is it just a story we tell our kids? In this moment, it feels like a lie. It feels like the darkness has won, and won easily. Jake Runnels watches the phone shatter. He watches the father pull his child close. His expression doesn't change. Not one flicker. But a man like Jake, his stillness is a language. He's not watching a scene anymore. He's part of it. They've locked the door. They've cut off the outside world. They've made their choice, and in doing so, they've made his. He is no longer an off-duty man wanting coffee. He's the shepherd, and the pen is locked. He knows this kind of evil. It's not complicated. It's not deep. It's just empty, and it has to be filled. It fills itself with the fear of others. These men, they need this. They need to feel big by making others feel small. They need to break things to feel like they're building themselves up. But they don't understand the first thing about real strength or real honor. The man who locked the door turns back to Jake. And you, old man, you're gonna sit back down, or you're gonna be next. He points to Miss Sarah. He's made his threat. The entire room is his audience. The fear is a thick fog, and he's breathing it in like oxygen. He believes he has all the cards. He believes he's in complete control. He made one mistake, one fatal miscalculation. He didn't just lock the sheep in, he locked himself in with the shepherd. He thinks the lock is keeping help out. He doesn't realize it's just sealed their fate in. A man with nothing left to lose but his honor is a dangerous man. A man protecting his flock, trapped with the wolves. Well, that's not a man anymore. That's an instrument of justice. The trucker who locked the door takes a step toward Jake. He's made his threat, and now his pride demands he back it up. I told you to sit down. His voice is a low growl. The whole diner is watching. They see a good man, outnumbered, about to pay the price for his quiet defiance. They see the darkness winning. This is the moment where evil believes it's unassailable, where it thinks its power is absolute because no one has matched its volume. But Jake Runnels doesn't operate on volume. He operates on principle. His eyes never leave the man's face. He doesn't brace for the impact. He doesn't raise his hands to fight. He just stands. And his hand, the one that had been resting at his side, makes a move. It's almost invisible, a slight brushing of his jacket, a movement lost in the shadows and the tension. It's a movement of pure, practiced courage. Under that denim jacket, clipped to his belt, is the sheriff's radio. His thumb finds the transmitter mic, a small, hard piece of plastic he's touched 1,000 times. His fingers know it better than they know a pen. He keeps his gaze level, locked on the threat. He doesn't need to look. He just presses the button. One short, sharp click. A signal that carries no sound into the room, but screams across the rain-soaked airwaves. This is the quiet courage that moves mountains. It's not about the fistfight. It's about the resolve. It's the steady hand of honor doing the right thing, even when trapped. It's the faith that you are not alone in this fight. If you believe that the good still exists and deserves to be defended, that this kind of strength is worth standing for, leave your support here with a like. It's a quiet way of saying you're on the side of justice. Outside, in the cab of the patrol truck, Shadow hears it. The rain is a roar on the metal roof, but this sound cuts through everything. It's not a voice. It's not an alarm. It's a digital signature. It's the sound of his partner, the sound of his purpose. To any other ear, it's static. To Shadow, it is a crystal-clear command. Now, it's the only word he needs. In less than a heartbeat, the dog is transformed. He goes from a resting state to a state of pure, lethal focus. He is an instrument of justice, trained and loyal. His body tenses, muscle and sinew, coiled like a spring. He doesn't bark, he doesn't whine, he just acts. His entire being is now locked on that diner. He knows the mission. He knows his partner is inside. And he knows he's been summoned. The trucker in the diner sees none of this. He just sees a man who refuses to cower. He's enraged. He mistakes Jake's calm for arrogance. "You think you're better than me?" he snarls, closing the distance. He's so wrapped up in his own ego, his own need to dominate, that he's deaf to the world. He's blind to the shift that just happened. He's still playing his game, not knowing the rules just changed. Jake just stands there. He's a man of simple faith. He believes God helps those who help themselves, and he believes in a good partner. He's done his part. He has sent his signal. He has called for his other half. Now he just has to be the anvil. He just has to stand firm and let the hammers of their own rage break against him. He's a wall, protecting the family behind him. This is the turning point. It's not loud. It's not a trumpet blast. It's a click. It's the quietest sound of the night, but it's the one that seals their fate. The other customers don't know. The young waitress doesn't know. They are still trapped in their fear. They are praying for a savior, not realizing that justice often uses tools you don't expect. They don't know that help isn't on the way. It's already here. It's just outside. It's waiting in the rain, a dark shape of loyalty and teeth. The truckers thought they were locking the world out. They had no idea they were just sealing themselves in. They were so busy being the predators, they never checked to see if there was a bigger one in the dark. The trucker raises his hand, open, ready to slap Jake across the face, to humiliate him, to break his silent defiance. He wants to see him fall like Miss Sarah fell. He wants to prove that courage is useless. He swings, putting his weight into it, a final act of dominance. But justice has a different schedule, and it has a sound all its own. It's not the sound of the rain. It's not the sound of the man's hand. It's the sound of a latch catching. It's the sound of a quiet scratching at the back door. The trucker's hand is still in the air, halfway through its swing, when the sound comes. A soft scratch, click from the back, near the kitchen. It's not the rain. It's not the wind. It's something methodical, something trying to get in. The trucker freezes, his rage broken by confusion. He lowers his hand. "What in the hell is that?" he growls, annoyed that his performance was interrupted. He hates distractions. His partner, the one who'd been menacing the family, looks nervous. Probably just a coon, boss. Forget it. But the bigger man is irritated. He doesn't like things happening that he doesn't control. "You watch him." He jerks his chin toward Jake. "I'll check it." He lumbers toward the kitchen door, his boots heavy on the tile. He's sloppy. He's arrogant. He thinks it's just another lock he controls. He doesn't know that justice often uses a different door than the one you're watching. He shoves the kitchen's swing door, letting it flap. He peers into the dark prep area, toward the metal alley door. He sees nothing. He doesn't see the sliver of darkness that widens near the floor. He doesn't see the black shape that pours through that gap, silent as fog, low to the ground. Shadow doesn't make a sound. He's not a dog. He's a ghost. He's the physical manifestation of his partner's will. He's trained for this. He is loyalty in motion. Shadow moves along the wall, past the sacks of flour, his claws quiet on the greasy floor. He's a shadow indeed. He emerges from the kitchen, a dark phantom that none of the terrified patrons even register. They are all watching the man in the back and the man in the front. Shadow ignores the trucker by the kitchen. His eyes, intelligent and cold, find only one person in the room, Jake. He takes a position, just behind the counter, coiled, balanced, and waiting for the word. Jake sees him. A flicker of acknowledgement, that's all. The scales have tipped. The trap is no longer a trap. It's a kill box. The pieces are in place. The courage he'd held in silence is now backed by a force of nature. The room is still holding its breath, not knowing that the entire dynamic has just been rewritten. The two men are still playing a game they've already lost. They just don't know it yet. The trucker at the front, the one who'd been facing Jake, gets impatient. "What is it?" he yells to his partner. He turns back to Jake, his confidence returning. "Your time's up, old man." He balls his fists. He's going to end this. He's going to prove that his strength is all that matters. He's about to teach this quiet man a lesson about respect. But the lesson is about to go the other way. That's when Jake speaks. For the first time, his voice isn't a whisper. It's not a plea. It's a command. It's not loud, but it cuts through the rain, the fear and the arrogance like a razor. "That's enough." The voice is calm. It's cold. It's the voice of a man who is done waiting. It's the voice of authority, and it stops the trucker dead in his tracks. As the trucker stares, confused by this sudden shift, Jake's hand moves. It doesn't go for a weapon. It goes to his jacket, the same place he touched for the radio. He reaches inside. The trucker tenses, thinking it's a gun. But what comes out is a small piece of worn leather. Jake flips it open. In his palm, a tarnished five-pointed star catches the dim neon light. The honor of the entire state of Texas is now in his hand. "I am Sheriff Jake Runnels," he says, his voice level. "You are both under arrest." He doesn't say you might be. He doesn't ask them to surrender. He states it. He states the truth of the situation. This is not a request. This is a declaration of consequence. This is justice being named. The trucker's face, so full of rage and pride, just collapses. It's a roadmap of confusion, then dawning, sickening realization. He sees the badge. He hears the title. He looks at the calm, cold eyes of the man he'd called Old Man. He sees a man who is in no way, shape, or form afraid of him. The power in the room evaporates from him, drawn like water into the dry ground of true authority. He looks from the badge to Jake's eyes. He opens his mouth, maybe to curse, maybe to plead, but no sound comes out. His brain is catching up to the reality that his ego just crashed into. He'd been threatening a civilian. He'd been bullying a traveler. Now he finds he's been holding the senior lawman of the entire county hostage. And for the first time, his eyes dart around, looking for an escape. He sees his partner, still confused in the kitchen doorway. He sees the locked front door, the key in his own pocket. And then his eyes, wide with sudden animal fear, finally see the other shadow, the one that's been waiting, the one that hasn't moved. The reckoning has arrived. It hangs in the air, that moment. The badge, the name, the truth. The trucker's brain is still trying to catch up, his eyes wide, his world tilted on its axis. He's looking at the badge, then at Jake, then at the locked door. He's a trapped animal, and he finally knows it. The silence in the diner is absolute, heavier than the rain. It's the silence of a held breath, the moment just before the lightning strike, where all of justice is coiled, ready to act. The second trucker, the follower, finally understands. He sees his partner's face. He sees the badge. He's not a leader. He's a coward. And a cornered coward doesn't surrender. He gets desperate. He doesn't lunge at Jake. He lunges at the closest, softest target. He lunges toward the young family in the booth, maybe to grab the child, to make a shield. It's the ultimate act of cowardice, the final rejection of all honor. He never takes the first step. One word cuts the air, clean and sharp as glass. Shadow. Hold. It's not a shout. It's a release. The black shape that was waiting by the counter explodes into motion. He is not a dog. He is a black streak of loyalty, a blur of focused, righteous purpose. He is the answer to their violence. He is the guardian of the flock, and his courage is absolute. Shadow covers the distance in a single bound. The trucker doesn't even have time to raise his hands. The impact is a solid, heavy thud, a 90-pound missile of pure muscle hitting him chest high. The man is lifted off his feet, crashing backward into a stack of wooden high chairs. The sound is a sickening crack of splintering wood and a choked-off cry. If you believe no one should face evil alone, write never alone in the comments. We are, in this life, each other's keepers. Shadow doesn't maul. He doesn't tear. He holds. He pins the man to the floor, his jaws locked on the man's shoulder, his weight pressing the air from his lungs. The only sound from him is a low, vibrating growl. It is not a sound of anger. It is the sound of absolute control. It is the sound of honor defending the innocent, a promise kept in tooth and claw. The man on the floor can only whimper. All the fight gone out of him, replaced by a pure, primal terror. The first trucker, the leader, the one who shoved Miss Sarah, watches his partner go down. All his drunken rage, his wounded pride, his cornered fear, it all boils over into one last stupid choice. He roars, a meaningless animal sound, and he charges Jake. He still thinks his size is a weapon. He still thinks he can break the man, break the badge, and smash his way out. He is wrong. Jake doesn't back up. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't draw his weapon. This isn't about ending a life. It's about ending a threat. This is about restoring order. As the man swings a wild telegraphed punch, Jake moves. Not like a brawler, like water. He moves inside the punch, flowing with the man's own rage, a lifetime of practiced calm, meeting a moment of chaos. It's swift, it's quiet, it's the kind of force that doesn't need to be loud. He uses the man's own momentum against him. A block that redirects, a hand that twists the wrist, a foot that sweeps the ankle. It's a simple, perfect dance of consequence. The man's feet leave the floor, his center of gravity stolen from him. He is a falling tree, his power useless. The big man hits the tile floor, hard. The sound echoes, a solid, final thud. The air is forced from his lungs in a painful whoosh. Before he can even think to get up, Jake is on him. A knee is in his back. His arm is bent in a way that screams, surrender. The sound of metal handcuffs clicking into place is loud in the sudden quiet. It is the sound of justice being served, cold and final. The entire diner is frozen. They are watching in stunned, absolute silence. Not a single person moves. The young waitress, the family, the man who tried to use his phone. They are witnessing something ancient. The restoration of peace. The arrival of the guardian. The moment the storm breaks and the quiet returns. They are safe. It took less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds to unravel all the fear. 10 seconds to dismantle the chaos, to put the monsters in their place. This is the courage that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't need a crown. It's the quiet strength that holds the line when the whole world is trying to wash it away. The rain is still pounding. The coffee is still hot. But the world inside the Lone Star Gulp is forever changed. The wolves are caged. The shepherd is standing. And in the silence that follows the violence, you can finally hear the sound of breathing again. The sound of safety returning. For a long moment, the only sound is the rain. The click, click, click of the cooling coffee pot, and the quiet sobbing of the little girl. Now a sound of relief, not terror. The two men are silent. One is pinned by a force he can't fight. The other is bound by cold steel. Justice doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it's the quiet click of handcuffs, the final, undeniable sound of consequence. The storm inside the diner has passed, leaving a strange, heavy calm. In the distance, a new sound joins the rain. A wail. Sirens. Getting closer. Jake hadn't just called his partner, he'd called his deputies. He knew the fight would be over, but the cleanup always takes time. That's the part of the job that isn't about courage, it's about paperwork. It's about sweeping up the glass and making sure the lines are straight again. But first, before the uniforms, before the reports, he had a duty of honor. He doesn't look at the men on the floor again. They are no longer a threat. They are just cargo. He stands, his movements still unhurried, and his first stop is Miss Sarah's booth. He walks over, his presence a shield. He kneels down beside her, a gesture of respect that speaks volumes. His voice, when he speaks, is not the voice of the sheriff. It's the voice of Jake, the man who knew her husband. Miss Sarah, you all right? It's gentle, the way you'd speak to your own family. She's shaken, her hand still at her temple, but her eyes are clear. She looks at him, and in her gaze is the deep, knowing respect of the old guard. I am now, Jake. She'd shown a courage that shamed men half her age. She'd stood up. She'd held the line. And now the guardian was here to hold it for her. He offers his hand, and she takes it, his strength helping her to sit up straight. It's a passing of the torch, a quiet acknowledgement. Shadow, his duty done with the aggressor, leaves the whimpering man to the arriving deputies. He doesn't wait for a command. He knows his real job now. He walks over to Miss Sarah's booth. He doesn't jump up. He doesn't bark. He just stands beside her, a silent, dark sentinel. He nudges his head, gently, under her hand. It's an offering of comfort, a promise of protection. The same animal that was a weapon a moment ago is now a comforter. This is the true nature of strength. It's not just the power to destroy, it's the wisdom to protect. It's the honor to know when to be the sword and when to be the shield. Shadow, in his simple, profound loyalty, understands this better than most men. He will not leave her side. He is her guardian now. His presence a warm, solid guarantee that no harm will come to her again. The deputies come in, their faces grim as they take in the scene. The shattered phone, the overturned chairs, the two men on the floor. They look at Jake, and their expressions are a mixture of respect and concern. He just nods. Get them out of here. He doesn't need to tell the story. The story is written on the walls, on the faces of the patrons. Justice has been served. This is just the accounting. Jake turns to the young family. The father meets his eyes, and there's a look of profound gratitude, of shame that he couldn't protect them, and of awe at the man who did. Jake gives him a short, firm nod. A nod that says, "You did right. You showed courage. You stayed with your kin. That's all that matters." It's an absolution, a restoring of the man's honor in his own eyes. The diner is crowded now, with uniforms and medics checking on Miss Sarah, but it's quieter than it was when it was empty. It's the peace of a battlefield after the war is won. The fear is gone, replaced by a deep communal sense of relief. They've seen something tonight. They've seen that the monsters don't always win. They've seen that one good man standing in the gap can turn the tide. They've seen what honor looks like when it's been tested. It doesn't look like a statue. It looks like a tired man in a denim jacket. It looks like a brave old woman with a cut on her temple. It looks like a dog sitting faithfully by her side. It's not a grand thing. It's a real thing. It's the simple, everyday courage of good people. The deputies lead the two men out into the flashing blue and red lights. The rain is washing their shame away, but they'll remember this night. They'll remember the quiet man in the back booth. They learned that in this small Texas town, you don't mess with the local family. You don't disrespect the elders. And you don't, ever, mistake quiet for weak. Jake just stands by the counter, watching, making sure it's done right. The room is safe again. The world is back on its axis. But the night isn't over. The story isn't finished just because the fight is. Now comes the quiet part. Now comes the part where you have to live with the choices you made and the choices that were made for you. The flashing lights paint the diner in strokes of red and blue, then pull away one by one, leaving just the pale, warm neon. The deputies are gone, and so are the men who broke the peace. All that's left is the smell of rain and burnt coffee, and the deep, heavy quiet of after. The young family is gathering their things, the father's hand resting on his wife's shoulder. The waitress is sweeping up the broken glass. It's the sound of life starting to mend itself, the small, brave acts of putting things right. Miss Sarah, a small bandage on her temple, looks at Jake. The medics wanted her to go to the hospital, but she refused. This was her place. She was not going to be run out of it. She looks at this man, this quiet sheriff, who seems more like a rancher than a lawman. Her eyes, which have seen so much, are filled with a gratitude that's too deep for loud words. She reaches out, her frail, wrinkled hand touching his arm. "Jake," she whispers, her voice firm, despite the tremor. "Thank you. God bless you and that dog." It's simple. It's direct. It's an affirmation of honor, a blessing from the town's matriarch. It's the only payment a man like him would ever accept. She's not just thanking him for the rescue. She's thanking him for reminding her that men of courage still exist, that the world she built is still safe. Jake just looks at her. He doesn't smile. He just accepts it. He sees her. He sees her strength, her courage, her place in the fabric of this town. He reaches up, his fingers touching the brim of his imaginary hat, the one he wears in his soul. He gives a slow, respectful tip of his head. "Ma'am, that's all. It's enough. It means, I see you. You're safe. And it was my duty." He stands, turning to the counter. He pulls a few crumpled bills from his pocket and lays them on the wet surface. It's more than enough to cover his coffee. It's his way of closing the loop, of being a customer, not just a sheriff. It's a small act of restoring the diner to what it was before the storm came in, a place of business, of family, of peace. The waitress looks at the money, then at him, and just nods, her eyes full. Shadow is already at the door, waiting. He'd stayed by Miss Sarah until the last deputy was in his car. Now, his job is done. He's just a dog again, ready to go home. He doesn't need a thank you. His reward is his partner's presence. His loyalty is his honor. He is the perfect reflection of the man he follows, quiet, capable, and absolutely certain of his purpose. Jake turns. He doesn't say goodbye to anyone. He doesn't make a speech. He doesn't need to. His presence had been the speech. His actions had been the sermon. He walks to the door, the sound of his boots firm and steady on the tile he just defended. He pushes the door open. The little bell jangles, but this time it's a soft, gentle sound. It's the sound of peace, not alarm. He and Shadow step out into the night. The rain has softened to a drizzle. They don't look back. They don't wait for the applause. They just fade. The darkness of the Texas highway swallows them up. They become just another shadow in a wet night, indistinguishable from the fence posts and the old oaks. The diner, with its warm light, is now a safe island in the dark, its guardians having moved on. This is the path of the true protector. He doesn't do it for the badge, or the thanks, or the glory. He does it because the line has to be held. He does it because someone has to stand in the gap. He does it because justice isn't a word. It's a job. It's a long, lonely road. And he walks it so that people like Miss Sarah, like that young family, can sleep soundly, believing the world is decent. Because of him, it is. Tonight, at least, in this one small place, the darkness was met, and it was turned back. The wolves were reminded that the shepherd is always watching. They were reminded that courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just sips coffee in the back booth, waiting. The rain will wash the mud from the diner's entrance. The sun will rise. But the memory of what happened, the memory of that quiet justice, will stain the floor forever. A reminder to all who enter. And the sheriff, he's just driving. He and his partner, two shadows moving through the rain. Because this was just another night. And the county is large, and his watch isn't over. It's never over. The sirens are gone, the broken glass is swept, and the rain just keeps falling, washing the night clean. But the story doesn't end when the violence stops. It ends in the quiet, in the hearts of the people who saw it. It ends with the young waitress who knows she was protected. It ends with the family that will drive home in silence, knowing a good man stood in the gap. It ends with Miss Sarah, who will sleep soundly tonight, knowing the honor of her town is still in safe hands. The world is full of noise. It's full of men who think their volume is their strength. But strength, true strength, is quiet. It's patient. It's the courage to just sit and watch and wait for the right moment to stand. It's the soul of a guardian who doesn't need a badge to know his duty. When the moment comes for you, when the door is locked, and the loud men are shouting, and the innocent are afraid, what will be the truth of you? When the moment comes, will you stand for what's right, even if you stand alone? Will you be the one who waits, with courage, in the back booth? If you believe this world still belongs to the brave and the good, if you believe that justice is still worth the fight, stay with us. Subscribe, and walk this road alongside me. We need to remind each other what real strength looks like. Light travels slow in a long valley, but it always arrives. And when it does, every shadow trembles. May you never lose faith in the quiet strength of good people.